Hello there, Drew Hanish of Whiskey Lore. It's time for another tasting video. Thanks for joining me. This is going to be a tasting of Westland's American Oak. Single malt. I don't want you to get confused when I start talking about how many grains that they use in their whiskey. This is a more local whiskey that we have, and you'll see it's called triple malt. And common misconception is that when you use multiple grains and they're all malt, it's still a single malt. So in reality, that's a single malt, and this is a single malt. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that here. And I just did an interview with Chris Riesbeck of Westland, and you can hear that on Whiskey Lore, the interviews. We did a tasting of the peated version there, and I actually also recently did a video where I did a tasting on the sherry oak. So this is what used to be the flagship. This is not going to be on your store shelf for much longer. So if this piques your interest, you may want to go grab a bottle, because they are now going to create a new flagship, and that new flagship is already hitting the shelves and is replacing those three whiskeys. Interesting thing, when I poured this glass and then nosed it as I was walking over here, I smelled cigar smoke, and I had to do a double take, because I had just done I had just gone with Chris over to a local cigar bar, and the mind is a powerful thing, because there is no cigar note in this at all that I can tell normally, but for some reason it kicked off something in my memory, and I had to look around me, because I thought maybe my coat was still hanging around somewhere, because I had worn my coat in there, and I kept thinking that smoke smell is probably attached to me. My mother was great at being able to tell whenever I walked into a smoky place, because she'd say, oh, she could be upstairs, I'm downstairs, and she could smell that smoke. My ex-wife, who was a cigarette smoker and then gave it up, after she gave it up, she could tell when somebody was smoking in the car ahead of us while we're on the freeway going 60 miles an hour. So women have amazing noses, but I think in my case, this was just more of a memory that popped in with this smell the last time I experienced it, which was in a cigar bar with a bunch of smoke around. So yeah, once I put my nose to it now, and that is kind of out of my head, it's a completely different experience. Got the orchard fruits there. A little baking spice comes in. It's a really nice little complement to that orchard fruit that's in there. Maybe a hint of citrus. The first time I nosed this, I was picking up, during this session, oak and alcohol. Now, I'm not really picking them up here, and that's an interesting thing. I always suggest walk around the room, go to different areas of the house, and do your nosing, because you'll be amazed at how just a change of room sometimes can change the experience that you have. Now, like I say, this uses 5 malts, so the majority of it, I think about 70% of it, is a Washington Select malt, but they also use a pale chocolate malt, a brown malt, a Wisconsin malt that they brought in, and this makes up their malt bill, their barley bill. And then they use a yeast that is actually a Belgian Saison yeast, brewer's yeast. And to finish this off, they put it into 3 different types of barrels. One is an ex-bourbon, which is very much in the Scottish tradition, but then they have 2 extra barrels that they put them in as well. Cheers. Oh, grain and creme brulee. kind of coming together there. Little oak, and then it rolls into the smoke. I almost want to say that I got a little bit of an espresso note there as it started rolling into the finish, and then it's just this heat that runs from your tongue down your throat. It's just a peppery heat, and then the caramel kind of stays on your palate, and maybe a little bit of that citrus is there also. It's a very interesting progression that it takes to get to that finish. And the pepperiness is a really interesting piece of this because it's not overly aggressive except the first time that you sip it. So don't be turned off if you don't like too much pepper that first sip that you take of it, because it's a little more intense the first time that you take a sip of it. But as you drink this, it mellows out, and then it just becomes this really nice kind of a warming effect along the way. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and leave your comments below. If you've had this, what do you think? You know, this bottle, I think last I checked, is around $70+ plus. Are you gonna miss it? Are you looking forward to the new one that's coming out, which is actually going to be a lower price point? I think Chris said it was maybe going to be in the $50 range somewhere. So it will make it much more affordable to purchase. And so it'll be interesting to see how that all works out. Until next time, cheers and slanjava. That's a good whiskey.